You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. Thanks for joining us. I am one of your illustrious hosts, and more to the point, I am your awake host, Keith Grieve.
Yes. I'm Sleepy Steve. Hi, everyone.
In case some of you are not in our inner circle and are listening, I'll give the floor. Let me cue this music down. Mr. Taylor, go ahead, take the air and tell everybody about your personal new venture.
All right, folks. I've taken a huge step in my life and career. Last night, I have published my first book. I know I've mentioned it here and there for the last 6 months or so on the show. Well, the day has finally arrived. Thank God for that, finally. Yeah, that's why I'm so sleepy. I had to do a nice 11th hour edit last night, and I had to pull an all-nighter, which I haven't done since I was 20, so that was probably 30 years ago.
So tell them about the book. What's it about?
The book is called The Lockbox. For those of you looking for a good read, fast read, it's not the longest book ever. It's not the shortest. It is a spy novel. I like to call it PG-13, so I don't want to use the term necessarily young adult because it is for adults, but it is good for, in my opinion, anyone, I'd say 14 and up. It is about two teenagers who are just your average run-of-the-mill teenagers living in Wyoming, and then one day their lives just get turned upside down. Thanks to the mysteries of the lockbox, these two kids are thrown into a world of espionage and violence and just have to rely on each other to survive. And it takes them from Wyoming to Chicago to Scotland. I mean, it's just a wonderful book. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but I've worked really hard on it. And if you are looking for a good gift, I know Christmas is coming up, the Lockbox is available right now digitally on Amazon.com through the Kindle for $4.99. And this time next week, you will be able to also purchase it in paperback on Amazon for $8.99. And let me tell you, it is well worth it. Go out, buy it, read it, and by all means, contact us through the show and give me whatever feedback you want and let me know. Because as much as this is a personal venture of mine, it also, anything I do and anything we do, the show is a part of our lives. So you, as our fans, I respect your judgment, I respect your input, and I would love to hear from you. And
our show should be part of your lives. And if it's not, well, what the hell's the matter with you?
I know. We are up right now at 10 o'clock at night saying garbage about nothing, and you need to be listening to it.
That's right. Well, it just sounds like garbage because you're so exhausted.
True. You get drunk, but I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, a reminder that this and every broadcast is brought to you by CG Imaging. For all your digital rendering, imaging, and schematic needs, go to cg-imaging.com. CG Imaging, virtually creating reality.
Yeah.
And if you want to take part in the broadcast, the phone number, as always, is area code 585-633-7487. That's 585-633-7487. You can email us at youguysuck@87sportsfans.com. And we're also on Twitter at 87sportsfans and Facebook.com/87sportsfans.
So how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Yes, fine.
You're fine?
I'm fine. Did
Did
not get to our NFL power rankings for this week as of yet, so I'll probably be burning a little midnight oil after the show to get those done before the games tomorrow night. But the NFL is for later in the show.
Oh, it is so for later in the show.
And so right now, I would like to talk very candidly about the World Series. Game 1 happening right now. As we sit right now, as I refresh my browser to give you the most up-to-date information, it sits in the bottom of the 5th. David Ortiz on first. 1 out in the bottom of the 5th. the Boston Red Sox thrashing the St. Louis Cardinals 5-0 to date. The Cardinals trotted out Adam Wainwright, who, I don't want to call him money, but he's usually performs to what you expect Adam Wainwright to be.
He's usually about as close as you can get to money.
Yeah, well, he's got 4 1/3 innings in, 6 hits, 5 runs, 3 of them earned, 1 walk, managed to strike out 4, and has thrown 93 pitches through 4.1 innings. John Lester, on the other hand, 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, and 5 strikeouts, no runs. I guess that's just
definitely making him earn his keep right now.
I guess that's the nature of the beast, you see, because Wainwright has only given up 1 more hit than Lester, but yet 5 more runs. And in the first inning, a little thing that baseball purists, what I like to call those that are out of touch, would like to call the human element, reared its ugly head, right? The very first inning. So theoretically, like any sport, baseball has what we would like to hope, anyway, are the best umpires around. You would think. You got 4 umpires around the infield and 1 each on the foul pole. So you have extra eyes. And in all honesty, they got it right eventually. But I have no love lost for umpires or officials, referees. Steve will be more than happy to tell you about the recreational league basketball games that I was ejected from.
Oh, my God.
And then proceeded to take my shirt off and walk out of the gym.
And trust me, that's a flagrant foul right there. So
I have no loss for any kind of sports officials. Never done the job, but that's the way I like it. So if you're a sports fan and you're listening to this, you probably already know about this because Twitter exploded. But ground ball to first, throw to the shortstop. Peter Kozma does not even... The ball never touches the inside of his glove. The ball never enters the vicinity of the inside of that dead piece of cow on his hand. It doesn't. It's not even close. It doesn't even come close. The ball bounces off. It looks like something that happens in spring training. It's bad enough that we're in the World Series and the shortstop can't handle a throw like that to turn a double play in the World Series. This is supposed to be the best baseball of the year, theoretically. So that in and of itself made me want to vomit. Then, to add insult to injury, you have this... I think it was Jim Joyce. I'm not sure. Or no. I forget who the umpire was. I got so infuriated, I've already forgotten who the freaking umpire was that screwed up. Oh, it was Dana DeMuth is the second base ump.
Uh-huh.
Dana DeMuth staring right at the play, and he calls the runner out, saying that Kozma lost the ball on the transfer. Now, in the ensuing chaos, because it was so painfully obvious to everybody, they ended up reversing the call and making it right. But my point is, what could you possibly be looking at with all of your years of experience on the grandest stage of your sport? What could you possibly be looking at to make that call?
Yeah.
I mean, on that stage, the impact to the potential impact to the game. Say nobody else really saw it. Say you're the only idiot that was looking at that play. And nobody else saw it that could override you. And you have this monumental error shaping the very first game of the World Series. You got to fire him.
You can never do that, though.
Well, regardless, let's say in a perfect world where people are actually able to be held accountable for their actions.
Yeah.
You got to fire him. That's gross incompetence is the word I'm looking for. It's right there in front of you.
The minimum they need to do is make sure that he's not part of any other World Series game this season. You know what I mean? I mean, that goes without saying, but who knows if that's going to be the case.
I just... I don't know. That it's just absolutely.
Well, now, have you noticed... I've noticed in baseball, ever since the use of instant replay has become more and more prevalent, there have been more of these completely blatant bad calls. Like there've always been bad calls where people get mad at the refs and the umps. But like this call, and there have been others, primarily this season, where you're just like, okay, now come on, what are you watching? You're obviously not paying attention to the play going on in front of you. And it just seems like that's been happening more and more season after season. I don't know if it's just the new crop of umpires that are out there, or if it is the fact that they're getting lazy knowing that they have replay to bail them out if they truly make a grievous error. But it's like you said, it's just some of these things should not be, some of these calls should not be made. No. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Especially one that you're looking at right in front of you. I can't excuse it. It sounds stupid to be railing on about it, but it was so obvious. It's not everyone makes mistakes. No. You don't make that mistake.
Yeah.
You don't get to make that mistake. Like, I'm at the point now where I almost think like somebody should have a spare umpire in the underground in the clubhouse to just relieve Dana Demuth of his duties right here and now before he hurts somebody else. Seriously. Can't stand it. So anyway, of note, apparently also Cardinals right fielder Carlos Beltran left the game after the top of the third inning with a right rib contusion. Oh,
which that's the last thing they need playing against the Red Sox, is to lose him for any amount of time.
Yeah, this is you think about how unimpressive the Red Sox were last season, and now all of a sudden
they were the worst in their division.
Yeah, and then this year with roughly the same cast, they're all about it. You know what I mean? They're the team right now.
Yeah,
and the Cardinals are that. Like we said in previous weeks. There's nothing really flashy about their lineup. There's not even really anything flashy about their pitching staff. They'll just go out and beat you if you allow them to.
Yeah.
And so far, the Red Sox jumped out in front, and they're not looking back.
Well, it's in St. Louis and both St. Louis and the Dodgers had the same problem that I think is going to help the Red Sox win. Is both of those teams had and have better players, but the Red Sox are just playing so well as a complete team that it's tough, because they do, they also have crazy talent, but not quite as well in the positions, or at least some of the players like Pedroia and like Ortiz are a little long in the tooth, but they are just, they are one solid unit that you look at them and yeah, I don't necessarily believe they're going to, sweep St. Louis. I think, this is just a lot of emotion in game one, but the fact that they have home field advantage, I think it's going to play a huge part in this, especially in the waning games of the series when, I know tonight is pretty cold and tomorrow they said it's potentially going to be one of the coldest World Series games in history. So you look at if they go back to St. Louis and lose a few, and then they go back to Boston. It's going to be interesting to see how the cold affects both of these teams.
This is the one downside of having the extra playoff teams and the extra. The 162 game schedule now, and not now, the last 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. But now you end up with these games that are pushing into November. God forbid there's a rain out.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about, that November 1st time frame. Although I did play an adult league fall ball championship game the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And I was wearing 4 layers. And it was not fun. And it was not good baseball by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. So let's not hope for that by any chance. When you look at it on paper, you think that the Red Sox got to win this in 5. I really do.
See, and the thing is I would tend to agree with you, but I mean, I
But
picked the Dodgers in the last series against St. Louis. You know, I overlooked St. Louis, which once again, I still think I picked them going to the World Series. I don't have my notes from when we did our preview show, but I'm pretty sure I picked them to either go to the World Series or even win the World Series. I think I might have picked them to win it. But I just, in this postseason, I've completely overlooked them, and they are crazy talented. And I just don't know if I have the confidence to do that again. Like, they very likely could go out and take game 2. Even though the Red Sox are at home and they have momentum and they're going to have a lot of passion. It's one of those things that, you know, you look at them and you just like you said, you know, it looks like the Red Sox should take it in 5, but I mean, I would not be surprised if this goes to 7.
Without going through and replaying last year's episode, just looking at my prediction, and boy, was I off.
Who'd you have? I know you picked Arizona to go far.
I picked Arizona to win the West.
To win the West.
I predicted Tampa Bay to win this division. I predicted Boston 75 and 87.
Well, we both picked Boston near the bottom.
Yeah, and I picked the Yankees to only win 74 games. And be last by 1 game. I wanted them to be worse than Boston by 1 game just so it would eat at Yankee fans all fall along. And then I picked the Tigers to win the Central. I picked Minnesota dead last, Kansas City second to last. In the West, I picked the Angels and then Oakland. I did pick them to win 85 games. So
you weren't too off on that.
Yeah. Then Texas and then Seattle, Houston. So it wasn't completely wrong. Just had nobody. If anybody would have told you in March that the Angels weren't going to win 90 games with that lineup and that they would have the season that they did with Pujols, pretty much. You know, he's never going to be the same when he comes back. I just find it hard to believe. But
which is kind of sad because you know his career's. And once again, there's one of those examples of you have a guy that's lights out and you move him to a team at an advanced age and give him a ton of money and he's not going to perform. I mean, it's almost every time I look at the numbers that he puts up, I want to scratch my head and be like, did he go to the Yankees instead? Because it seems like, you know, most of those high touted talents that go to New York late in their career and get a ton of money never pan out, and that's kind of what's happening with Pujols right now, which is kind of sad. I really like that guy. I always liked watching him play.
And in the National League, I picked the Nationals to win 101 games. I just want to kick myself.
They have to be the biggest disappointment of the year.
Yeah,
by far.
I thought for sure that they were a 100-win team. I thought they were going to be that outstanding. And they were injured all year. It really isn't fair.
Yeah,
but
there's not much you can do.
Then I did pick the Braves to win 98 games.
Oh, nice.
Yep, and they won 96. So I went way high. In the Central, I picked Cincinnati, then St. Louis, then Milwaukee. This was before Ryan Braun flamed out.
Oh, yeah, before the steroids.
I had Pittsburgh going 79 and 83. I'm glad I was wrong. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong column, but I still picked Cincinnati, then St. Louis.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of curious to see what happens next year with Pittsburgh. You know, it's one of those things that it was such a great kind of feel-good story this year that I'm wondering if it's going to be able to continue or if they go down a little bit. Because they do have great talent on their team, but they did play out of their ass. You know what I mean?
Yep. I picked the Tampa Bay Rays, Detroit Tigers, Angels, Orioles, and Blue Jays to be American League playoff teams, with the Tigers winning the AL. That was my pick. I picked.
You weren't far off of that.
And I picked the Nationals, Reds, Giants, Braves, and Cardinals. So I got 3 out of those 5.
Yeah.
And I thought the Nationals were going to win it all. They were my darlings. My babies were going to make me look like a genius.
Yeah.
But you see where that gets me.
Yeah.
Absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
So what's your official prediction? Because I'll admit that looking on paper, I'm saying Red Sox in 5, but things could happen where this definitely goes 7 innings. But I'm going to be a man. I'm going to stand up, make a call. I'm going to say Red Sox in 5.
I'm going to say Red Sox in 7. I think it's going to be one of those Game 7s, Fenway Park, Red Sox pulling it out, finding a way. One of the big feel-good stories of the year in sports that's going to win all the ESPYs later. I just, like I said, I'm not going to count St. Louis out, regardless of the fact that they're getting, hit pretty good in this game. I think they have enough to extend this series all the way to the end. So I'm going to say Red Sox in 7.
Alrighty, and there you have it, folks. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little NBA. We're getting closer and closer to opening night tip-off. Got a lot to talk about, especially with Monty out of commission. Unfortunately, you'll have to listen to us two fools for a little bit here. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. NBA coming up after the break.
God, it's been such a long time. When did I go blind? I didn't know love felt so beautiful. Colors now look so bright in the cold air, in the dead of night. It doesn't seem so lonely now that you're around, and I'm learning to see that life's better from upside down. God, it's been such a long time. When did I go blind? I didn't know love felt so beautiful. I didn't know love felt so beautiful. Felt so beautiful. Don't wanna know how. Won't let you go now. I didn't know love felt so beautiful. God, it's been such a long time. When did I go blind? I didn't know love felt so beautiful. God, it's been such a long time. When did I go blind? I didn't know love felt so beautiful. Felt so beautiful.
They're EasySportsFan.com. Sometimes they just don't make sense. It's okay, just not according. They'll go to bed soon. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. The number 585-633-7487. 585-633-7487. Getting some Twitter comments from Cardinals fans. Do I need to bring up the 2011 World Series? Never count us out. So then my response to him was, "Well, call in if you want to jaw jack." And I would if I wasn't speechless after the first 2 innings. Yeah. Wait till you get a lead and then you'll call in, won't you? That's how it works. Okay, well,
if there's one thing the Red Sox prove is that the game is not over when it's only 5 runs.
Right. Did you see that piece I wrote about the ALCS and that Max Scherzer asked out of Game 2?
Yes.
Do you think I was wrong about that?
No.
My take was like, how could you possibly ask out? I know it was 5-1 at the time, but I'm not raising my hand and saying, "Yeah, Skip, I'm good." Not in that situation.
Not when the game's that important. You don't.
I got a 4-run lead. Let me finish it. Let me get my complete game in. I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
All right, but first, before we go on, let me tell you about CG Imaging and what they do. They take your ideas and they make them come to life with 3D realistic animation. True magicians in the art of computer-generated graphics. Say that you're trying to sell an idea to your boss, a concept that you have, but your sketches, your words just aren't doing it. Go to CG Imaging. They'll make it seem like it's really happening. Say you're trying to sell a product to a customer and you're trying to let them see what your product will look like in their space. CG Imaging can make that appear like it's already happened. Maybe you're starting a business and you need a logo. They designed our logo and they designed the header for our website. So go to their website, cg-imaging.com. CG Imaging, virtually creating reality. And also, folks, like if you missed the beginning of the show, go to Amazon.com and download the book The Lockbox by your friend Steven Taylor.
Oh, is that a setup for myself?
Well, I was just saying, go to Amazon.
Go to Amazon.com. Right now it is available in digital for the Kindle, which I know there are some people I've talked to who do not own a Kindle, but as long as you own any Apple or Droid device that has the option of downloading the Kindle app, which is a free download, you can download that app, and then you can download the book and read it right on your iPad right now. It is $4.99 as far as the digital download, and then this time next week, you'll be able to purchase the paperback version for $8.99. Once again, it is all on Amazon.com. The Lockbox, and if you're looking for a good read, a nice book about espionage and the spy world and family, and it really is. It's something I'm very proud of, and I want everyone to go out and buy it right now.
All right,
that's how good I feel about it. I want you to spend your money right now on it.
And don't worry, none of it goes to the show, so don't worry about it, folks. You won't have to worry about prolonging the inevitable death. All right, so let's hit the hardwood here. NBA owners alter the finals format, according to Brian Windhorst at ESPN.com. NBA owners voted unanimously Wednesday to change the finals format to 2-2-1-1-1 after nearly 30 years of a 2-3-2 format. The change will take place effective for the 2014 finals in the spring. What's your feeling on that? I was kind of 50-50 on it. I liked 2-3-2 because it gave that underdog seed the chance to, if you managed to win one out of the first two on your visitor's floor, then you had a chance to run away with it. But I could see where, well, it's not really a true sense of the two teams if that home team never gets another shot on their own court, whatever. What's your feeling?
To me, I like the 2-3-2 method. Like it's kind of annoying. I mean, I'm wondering if it's just a ploy for them to extend the finals by having extra travel days thrown in there in the end. But to me, it's okay. If you're the best team, you get home court advantage. You get the first two games. You get the last two games. And then that also puts your back against the wall that if you are the better of the two teams, you should get those first two games. And if by some chance you lose one, you need to be good enough to go to your opponent's home court and at least win one of those games. So to me, the 2-3-2 method makes sense. It is something that I've always been a fan of, and just 2-2-1-1-1 is kind of crazy. I don't know. To me, it really does not make that much sense. I mean, you're going to have all of those extra travel days really for nothing.
Right, and then again, as David Stern apparently says, there's been a sense among our teams that in a 2-2 series, it's not fair for a team with a better record to be away for Game 5. You put it like that, it makes total sense. Ironically, when Stern first became commissioner, this again according to Windhorst's article here, he kind of led the charge to change it to 2-3-2 by 1985 after Red Auerbach complained about all the traveling with the finals with the Lakers going from Boston to L.A. And also done to encourage more media coverage, because in the 80s, basketball was dying, at least in the early 80s. When you say that Magic and Bird saved the NBA, it's not an exaggeration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it makes sense. If you look at it, say this coming season, you have Miami and the Clippers. That's insane amount of travel. I mean, that's crazy to go, all right, let's, Game 5, we're going back to Miami. Game 6, we're going back to LA. Game 7, we're going back to, you know what I mean? It's kind of Looney Tunes if you think about it. Now, mind you, if the two teams are closer, it's not that big a deal. But, I mean, more than not, you're going to see the potential for the series that maybe, even if it's Chicago and the Clippers, or Chicago and LA or whatnot, chances are it's going to be one of those teams on the West Coast and a team that's all the way on the East Coast. And doing that 1-1-1 is just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
So now, speaking of craziness, let's go back in the DeLorean here. Let's go back in the DeLorean to 1 year ago today, when the Philadelphia 76ers were going to unveil their new lineup and eventually, hopefully, get Andrew Bynum back on the floor. A team that had played valiantly in the previous playoffs. And we all thought, wow, this might be Philly's chance to get back into contention regularly. I mean, they were there with Iverson, but not really. They didn't really have much else other than Iverson. They had a lot of good players before Philly fans start blowing me up. But as far as superstars, not really there. They had Drew Holiday, Evan Turner, with a post presence like Bynum if he could ever get healthy. Oh, and optimism was just teeming in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Now let's come back to the present day. And the Bynum situation was a disaster last year. Doug Collins decided that he was done on the 76ers because there really wasn't anything excited. So it was a total scrap and rebuild. Drew Holiday gets shipped in an effort to acquire Nerlens Noel. And now news comes that the 76ers are now expecting to sit him out for the entire upcoming season as he recovers from knee surgery. Personally, in the scope, the 76ers weren't going to win anything this year. I mean, let's just be honest here. They got a new point guard, Michael Carter-Williams. Noel would have to rehab and then work his way back in the lineup. It would just set the stage for just a lot of mess. I personally think it's prudent for the Sixers to just sit him for this entire season, let him get back to 100% before his career goes the way of the Odin.
Oh, the Odin. See, and the one thing I've always bothered me about the NBA, above all other sports, is the NBA has more and has had more players who are making millions on the bench than any other sport. I mean, it's kind of crazy if you look at it, that you would bring in a guy that potentially will miss an entire season and pay him millions of dollars to see what he might potentially do. And like you were saying about Odin and like what happened last year with Derrick Rose and what happened last year with Andrew Bynum, you have all these players and all this talent. And, you go years without these guys even stepping foot on the court, and you're still paying them millions of dollars. It's kind of nuts. And no other sport, including football, which is a crazy, violent, much more of a contact sport than basketball. If you had a quarterback or a wide receiver, some of these guys are going out and playing with severe injuries just because they want to get out and play. Where in the NBA, it's like, well, you know what? He's got a little soreness, so we're going to sit him another 6 weeks and see what happens. It's like, man, Jesus, come on. Right. What are these guys getting paid for? They're supposed to play through injuries. I mean, you look at going back to my heyday. You look at Robert Parrish. Now, mind you, he was smoking weed before every game. But he would say that every game he would sprain his ankle like 4 times. But he never missed a game. He always played. And it's just that kind of toughness you do not see anymore in the NBA at all.
Greg Oden is still going to make $1 million this year.
Oh, yeah. He hasn't played, 1,400 games?
And that, you ready for that? That is the minimum salary.
$1 million is the minimum.
Although,
Wow.
it must be because they had to guarantee 884. Must be incentive laden. The cap hit is only 884.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must be nice, man.
I don't know how that works because I'm seeing all kinds of numbers. I'm looking on basketballreference.com for my data, so we'll just go with it. You look at the Heat payroll. Bosch, LeBron, both making $19 million. Bosch is making the same exact money as LeBron James.
Yeah.
And Dwayne Wade slightly $400,000 less next year.
This is a big year. This is why I think Miami is going to repeat. Is not only did LeBron James and he said and everyone else has said he's just gotten better, which is scary to think. But this is a big year for both Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade as far as contracts coming up. And, last year they both had disappointing seasons. I don't really give as much heat, no pun intended, on Dwayne Wade because of his injury issues. But him and Bosh need to have some big seasons to ensure that they have more, another big contract in their future. So, with that kind of pressure, and they are talented enough, both of them have been MVP candidates in the past, I think this could be a scary, scary year for the Heat.
And with that being said, why don't we launch right into it? Because I will say this, that for next year, all three of them have early termination clauses in their contract. All three of the big three can opt out. If you ask me, if one does, they all do.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. All right. So let's go conference by conference now, and you tell me who you got. The Atlantic Division, you got the Sixers, the Knicks, Raptors, Nets, and Celtics. Who are you picking for that division?
I believe the Nets are going to take that division.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of weak teams. The Knicks, other than the Knicks, but the Knicks, there's already the turmoil going on right now with Carmelo Anthony saying that he wants to be traded. So I don't see it getting any better for them. So I think the Nets, with the veterans they have on their team right now, I think they're going to make the run and take the Atlantic without. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 7 to 10 games ahead of the next team in the Atlantic.
Who will be worse? And I'm not being a smartass. Who will be worse, the Celtics or the 76ers?
I think the 76ers. Because the Celtics, they're going to be pretty bad, but most people agree they do have a lot of really good young talent, and that transitions over to their coach as well.
At least they got Jerry.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They got Jerry Wallace. So that's an NBA 2K name that we gave him back in the day.
Jerry was the best dunker on that game.
All right, so we both agree that the Nets and the Atlantic. In the Central Division, we have the Bulls, Pacers, Bucks, Pistons, or Cavs.
I'm going to say the Pacers. Because the only reason I'm not saying the Bulls is I still don't believe Derrick Rose is going to make it through the entire season.
He plays
and then to start the season, they're already having issues with Noah and Heinrich possibly not starting in the season opener because of some kind of nagging injuries. So to me, I think if Derrick Rose goes down again, they're done.
I agree. It's going to cost them the division, these nagging injuries. Do the Cavaliers make the playoffs?
Not yet.
Okay.
Close.
Okay.
Close,
that's fair.
but not yet.
Fair enough. Southeast Division, you got the Magic, the Hawks, the Heat, the Wizards, and the Bobcats. So,
that's the easiest.
Yeah. Okay, the Heat. Who's coming in? Who's coming in second?
Oh my God! You want to say the Hawks, but I might actually. I'm going to say the Hawks because you look at it, man. The Wizards, the Magic, and the Bobcats are so bad.
I don't think
really are.
I think the Magic are going to surprise some people this year.
That's why I hesitated. I almost said the Magic, but then once again with the Magic, since Dwight Howard left, he left that team in such disarray that even when they start looking good, they find a way to explode and implode. I mean, it's something. I don't know what happened when he left, but it's like he dragged the soul of the team with him.
Well, I'm not going to say there's not issues because anytime Hito Turkoglu is your top paid player, there's issues.
Yeah,
but I really think that the Magic season hinges on Victor Oladipo, whether he can really play. But there's unknown talent on this team, and I say unknown because people know him, but I don't think they really understand that if all of these players put it together, the Magic could be something to talk about. And I'm talking about Maurice Mo Harkless, Nikola Vukovic, and Tobias Harris. Those three players right there with Oladipo, if they gel the right way, the Magic might be a lot better than a lot of people think.
And that's the good thing about being in the Eastern Conference is there are so many of those bottom feeder teams that they just need to play a little better this season, and they could take that Buck spot for the number 8 seed in the East. Just because, for all of you though that don't remember, last year Milwaukee was terrible and they were sub 500 by quite a few games, and they still made the playoffs at the number 8 seed. So it's there are a few teams, and I'm going to throw in the Raptors who are going to be better, the Cavaliers, the Pistons are going to be better, even the Bucks again. These are all teams that are going to be sub 500, but they all could vie, and Orlando as well. They could all vie for that 8th seed. And I mean, it's not. I don't know if it's something necessarily to be proud of, because then you have to go to Miami and play them in round 1. But
so
you'll at least make the postseason. I don't know if there's a bonus for those guys for doing it. But
so my 8 playoff teams are going to be the Heat. And then after that, I'm not sure the order. The Heat, the Nets, the Knicks, the Bulls, the Pacers, the Magic, the Bucks, and the Raptors. Those are my 8 playoff teams.
I agree with all of them, except I think the Bucks might actually take a step back this season. And one team that I'm keeping my eye on, and once again, I'm not saying they're going to be good, but I think they'll be good enough to get the 8th spot, is the Detroit Pistons. So I've been kind of keeping an eye on them. I think they have the potential to be crappy, but not awful. And crappy can get you that 8th seed.
I'm not sold on Brandon Jennings being able to lead anybody anywhere. So we'll see what happens.
It's going to be interesting.
Thank God Chauncey Billups is back. That's all. Okay, switching over to the Western Conference, we'll start with the Northwest Division. You got the Jazz, the Blazers, the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the T-Wolves. Who's your first place?
This is such a tough one.
It's going to be a good division.
You have to go with Oklahoma City. As long as Kevin Durant is healthy and playing, you have to think he's going to take. He's going to be able to play good enough to lead that team to at least the Northwest, to at least taking the Northwest.
I would agree with you there, and I actually think the Blazers are going to be second in that division.
Yeah, I would say it's between the Blazers and the Jazz for second, but it's going to be pretty close.
Although I am very, very curious to see Brian Shaw coach the Nuggets. That would be just because I wanted him to be the Lakers.
He's a traitor.
I want to be the Lakers head coach. So anyway,
he's a traitor.
Pacific Division: the Warriors, Clippers, Kings, Lakers, and Suns.
Oh my God! See, everyone would want to say Clippers. I'm going to say the Golden State Warriors.
I'm in total agreement. Total agreement.
Oh, they are such an amazing, young, talented team.
Although they run the risk of taking the proverbial sports second step back, second year step back. Last year they were good and they made strides. And then typically sports franchises, they take a half step back the following year before they put it all together, or they don't do it at all, or they blow up. But that's second year.
Stephon Curry and Klay Thompson are just. If once again you had, luckily with those two guys, at least someone out of the two of them is going to be on every night, and if one of them is on, you have a good chance of winning. If both of them are on, man, it is almost impossible to beat them.
And Bogut, if he can stay healthy, is a serviceable big man.
Oh, absolutely,
without a doubt.
But yeah, so it's gonna. I'm looking forward to seeing Golden State this year because I desperately wanted to see them make the finals last year because in the postseason, there really was no team more exciting to watch than the Warriors. I mean, they were just unbelievable.
Over under for the amount of wins for the Los Angeles Lakers, I will say 45. You taking the over or the under?
I'm going to say under, but not by a lot. I thought they'd be a 500 team.
Okay.
So I was looking at the 41. Once again, it depends on what Kobe's like. You know, I think anyone that has the expectation at his age that he's going to come back from an Achilles injury and be anything like he was is asking a lot. Just because, I mean, for an old guy, that's one of the worst injuries you could have to come back from.
It's a major moral victory that he's even running at this stage.
But, you know, he could be like, if you remember Jordan when he played for the Wizards, he did not have that jump in his step anymore, but he still had the abilities, the raw talent to hit the jump shots. And you know, he didn't dunk that much anymore, but he could still hit that game-winning shot when you needed it.
Jordan's old man game is better than a lot of players' young man game.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think Kobe's going to be the exact same.
In our last division, the Southwest Division, the Mavericks, Spurs, Pelicans, Grizzlies, and Rockets.
I hate to do it, but I have to go Houston.
I knew you were going to do that.
Well, you have to. I mean, you have James Harden I love. And just Harden and Lin alone almost brought that team, you know, to the finals last year. So you throw in Dwight Howard, who, you know, the pressure's off him pretty much. You don't hear about him at all in this preseason. So the pressure's completely off him, and he's playing with a good, solid young team. I mean, I don't want to say Houston, but I think San Antonio is older than dirt now, and they're going to take a big step back this year, I believe. And then the Memphis Grizzlies, I was never really sold on them. You know, I know they have talent, but I see them as maybe like a 4 seed or a 5 seed this season, but I don't see them being up there in one of the top 3 teams.
I think that with the Rockets, Harden is a unique talent. Howard is a defensive game changer. Offensively, he is so overrated.
Rock hands.
So overrated. And I just wanted to see I'm just looking at names on the rosters right now. Hold on, because I'm not going to make my pick. Because I think I'm going to blow your mind right now.
Okay.
The Spurs, what are they missing? You know, who is I thought Ginobili retired. No,
if not, he's
still on the payroll.
Going to, yeah.
According to BasketballReference.com, I could have swore he retired. But anyway, they are just. No, he signed a 2-year deal on July 11th. There it is. They are old. They are very old.
I mean, you can't expect Parker or Ginobili to be able to make it a full season. I mean, they haven't played a full season in quite a while, either one of them. And Duncan, as much as I love the guy, I almost would want to see him retire right now because it's like, listen, you know the talent that's in the NBA right now, and your chances of getting back to the finals are very slim. And I would almost rather him go out right now while he's still, last year in the finals he looked amazing. And it's like, listen, buddy, it's not anything shameful to step down when you're ahead, when you're at the top. I mean, look at Barry Sanders, and I think Duncan needs to do that now because this could be a very, very rough year for him.
All right, you ready for this?
Yeah.
I am going to pick the Memphis Grizzlies to win this division. Am I out of my mind? Going to blow your mind prediction right now is that the Rockets will finish with a worse record than the New Orleans Pelicans.
See, I think that's crazy.
I told you, it's going to blow your mind.
And just because I have that much respect for James Harden, that I don't I don't see it happening because of just him.
You look at the Pelicans, okay, and again, Eric Gordon, has been hurt a lot, so who knows what he's got left. But Tyreek Evans, Drew Holiday coming over, Anthony Davis one more year, you got Austin Rivers another year in the league. There's a good amount of talent on this team, and if between Drew Holiday, Tyreek Evans, and if Anthony Davis can come around with the offensive game just a little bit better than he was last year, I think that the Pelicans are going to be a team that I don't think they'll win the division. But I think they're a 51 team, and it's not like it's going to be 10 games difference between them and the Rockets, but I'm predicting the Rockets to finish with a worse record than
That
the New
is
Orleans
interesting.
Pelicans. So there's your
Sounds like a bitter Lakers fan. Dwight Howard.
He's a crazy man. He's a crazy man. He's lost his mind. Let's take a break. When we come back, Jim Saranteas from thefantasygreek.com will be joining us for the NFL Hour. An hour no one in their right mind, no sports fan in their right mind should miss. You're listening to 87 Sports Fans Radio, the show 87 Live.
took a vacation and called in for Mr. Hyde and said, it's about time. Oh, it's got this hold on me. And girl, you took a toll on me. You cannot save me from the monster I've become. You cannot save me from. You cannot save me from the monster I've become. You cannot save me It's got this hold on me. And girl, you took a toll on me. Oh, you cannot say. It's got this hold on me. And girl, you cannot say. You took a toll on me.
They're 87sportsfan.com. Sometimes they just don't make sense. It's okay, just not accordingly. They'll go to bed soon. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the NFL Hour. Joining us now is Jim Saranteas from thefantasygreek.com. Hello, Jim.
Keith, Steve. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
The best hour in the history of internet radio happens each week at this time on this station. If you are listening right now, you should consider yourself lucky. That's
And
all I'm
I
gonna
just, I meant to do this right at the start, and I'm jumping in. How about those Steelers, and how about those Colts?
Oh,
Second week in a row, I got destroyed for my picks. And once again, my teams came through. I couldn't get the trifecta because of the damn who was my the other team? Oh, the Eagles. They had to drop an egg, but at least I got the Steelers and the Colts, and I'm a happy man.
Yeah, Steven taking the week 10-5 last week. I was in second place at 9-6, and Jim, well, had the rough 500 week, 8-8
Steve, I tip my hat to you.
or 8-7. I take that back because there was only.
I don't think there was another person, even Colts fans, that were rooting for the Colts as much as I was in that game. I'm like, come on, you gotta win. I gotta be right. I was screaming.
Got to give him credit, and I don't want to steal whoever's got that game in the recap. But the Colts look pretty damn impressive.
Well, I don't know about all that, but they did win the game.
Well, the thing is that it wasn't a slaughter, but you weren't going to slaughter the Broncos. So when you play a good team like the Broncos, there's going to be something. If you come out with a convincing win, it's the equivalent in my mind of a slaughter because the Broncos are that good. But I don't know. I've been wrong before, and I'm sure I'll be wrong again. So without further ado, let's get right into the recaps. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the 87 Sports Fans NFL Week 7 in review. Cue the music. I'll lead off this time. Seattle at Arizona. Yes, I picked the Cardinals. Well, quite frankly, we have this damn pick game going on, and you got to make up ground somewhere. So I thought I actually had a shot with the Cardinals being at home, but the Cardinals end up with 30 net rushing yards. 30 net rushing yards for the entire game. Carson Palmer throws 2 picks, but he was sacked 7 times. That Cardinals offense was completely one-dimensional, and by the end of the game, it was no-dimensional. Seattle, Russell Wilson, 18 of 29 for 235 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did lose 2 fumbles, though. Marshawn Lynch, 21 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. They were 7 of 12 on third down. Arizona couldn't keep them off the field. They couldn't keep their defense off their offensive players. It was just a mess, and rightfully so. I look like the jackass. Steve, break down the Bears and Redskins.
Oh, what a heartbreaking game for Bears fans. I mean, you have what could be the end of the Jay Cutler era in Chicago. Redskins win 45-41, and you look at this game, and it wasn't necessarily the Bears' offense, because being a Bears fan and having their offense put up 41 points is darn near a miracle. But Cutler, for those of you who don't know, he tore his groin muscle and is out 4 to 6 weeks, is the last time I heard.
Rub it out.
So you look at a player like him who's had his issues in Chicago. He's on a contract year, and now he's going to miss, the meat of the season to a backup. Well, and I'm not giving Josh McCown too much credit because he was playing against kind of a rough Washington defense, but he came in and 14 to 20, 204 yards and a touchdown. He looked good. He found Alshon Jeffrey, who the rookie has been showing more and more week after week that he is a major target on that team. And then Matt Forte finally showed up, 16 for 91 with 3 touchdowns. It had the game that everyone was expecting. You look at Washington. Robert Griffin III once again played good, but not great. He was one of those, hey, we're kind of the performance he's put up all season. You look at their running game, and the Bears' defense was non-existent, and they gave up 209 rushing yards, which, I know there's issues on the defensive line, and then they also lost Lance Briggs in this game. But the Bears' defense, I mean, they looked old, they looked slow. They did not look like they could contain a cold right now. To me, I think this is the end of any hope for the Chicago Bears to be in the championship discussion for this season. They still might make the postseason, but I think losing Cutler, losing Briggs, the team is going to start to make a little bit of a decline, where the Washington Redskins didn't really show me much in the hopes of making any kind of a move in their division as well. The only thing negative I want to take out of this game is, once again, the piece of trash by the name of Brandon Merriweather had a couple more instances where he led with his helmet. For those of you who don't know, this guy is a habitual helmet tackler. And he's the one that knocked out Eddie Lacy early in the season. He's the one, he had another hit against James Starks in the same game, which actually knocked Merriweather out. And it was just brought out where at first he was suspended for 2 games, and now it's been cut down to 1. So once again, the NFL has a major issue they need to deal with, and they just slap him on the wrist, which I'm very disgusted with.
Wow. Well, the NFL just... They want to worry about safety, but we won't worry about that safety. We'll kind of
that was rough.
Sorry.
Protect the heads, but knock out their kneecaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
ACLs can be repaired. You only get one head.
Ask Brian Cushing how that is this week.
Yeah. Jim, Bills and Dolphins.
Well, to follow up that, on hopefully somewhat of a positive note, Bills Mafia, I tip my hat off to you, and specifically your Buffalo Bills, for pulling out another win in a game that I don't think a lot of people thought the Bills could win. Somehow, some way, Tad Lewis is guiding this train down the right tracks, and without generating a whole lot of offense. This is a team that's putting together wins through some solid rushing through the ageless Fred Jackson, who put up roughly 90 yards in a score, as well as a Bills defense that's, when called upon, they seem to be playing above themselves, and they put forth, a good defensive touchdown. But I got a feeling a lot of people want to see J. Manuel back, and more importantly, we'd all like to see C.J. Spiller back 100% healthy. Why not just give him an extra week off and let's see what happens? Dolphins fans, after a 3-0 start, you've lost 3 in a row, and I'm so sorry. Ryan Tannehill, even though he didn't hit 200 yards, he tossed 3 TDs. I don't know how much more you can ask, except me personally, I'd like to see Lamar Miller get a few more touches. If you're not going to give your number one running back 20 touches of the football, then you know what? Don't call him a number one running back. But I think it would make a significant difference. And if you're not going to give him 20 touches, then give the other guy 20 touches. Give somebody 20 touches. Keep the other team's offense off the field for goodness sake. The Dolphins' defense is solid, but they're not playing solid enough without an offense that can keep them fresh. Hopefully, better things are coming, but they got a tough matchup against the Patriots this week.
All right, Eagles 3, Cowboys 17. Well, the Eagles have won 3 games, but don't tell any of the Eagles fans because they haven't seen any of them. They're 0-3 at home. If you're a Cowboys fan, do not feel good about this win. You should feel dirty. You should want to go home and just scrub your hands like Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura when he realized he kissed a man. That's the kind of dirty you should be feeling right now. Nick Foles gets hurt. Matt Barkley comes in and he promptly pops up 3 interceptions. You get 3 turnovers, all right, and you win 17-3. Okay, Nick Foles, like I said, he leaves the game. You get a backup rookie quarterback nonetheless. Romo throws 2 picks of his own. You commit 12 penalties. You hold the ball for 36 minutes. You get 3 picks, and you only win by 2 touchdowns. By 2 touchdowns. You should not feel good about this. Philly, I don't know where to go with this. Their defense is on the field for just too long. Chip Kelly has got to find a way to score points with now Michael Vick coming back into the lineup this week. It remains to be seen what he's got in the tank. But he's got to find a way to either get his defense some instant stamina, maybe get some 5-hour energy drinks. But we'll go over that when we pick next week's game. Steve, Buccaneers, Falcons.
All right, Atlanta at home, 31-23 over the hapless 0-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The fact that the Buccaneers were 0-5 going into this game, Atlanta, yes, you got another victory, and you should feel happy with that, but you kind of beat up on a team that's not very good. And now, mind you, I give Glennon a lot of credit. He had a good game, not a great game. I mean, he was 26 for 44, 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks, which he did have a fumble that he lost. But for a guy in his position, you do see improvement there. You know, he was a little rough the first game, and then they had the bye week, and then he's slowly starting to show improvement. But just as he's getting better, bam, they get hit with Doug Martin out with an injury. So you kind of wonder, what has this team got other than Vincent Jackson right now on the offense as far as a weapon, to where you look at Atlanta, Matt Ryan, dynamite game, 20 for 26, 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Harry Douglas just coming out of, to me, it was kind of coming out of nowhere. I knew he was a talented receiver, but I mean, 7 receptions, 149 yards and a touchdown is just awesome. The only problem I have with Atlanta right now is, once again, their defense looked a little rough, and they only rushed the ball 18 times. Now, and that count, and actually, if I take out the 3 rushes that Matt Ryan had, which was probably running for his life against getting sacked, they only ran the ball 15 times between Rodgers and Snelling. So with that kind of an output in the running game, I do not see Atlanta getting any better than what they are right now until they get someone like Steven Jackson back who can help kind of solidify that backfield.
All right, Jim, Chargers, Jaguars.
Well, the Chargers won this game handily, and that wasn't much of a surprise. I think the biggest surprise to me was looking at Phillip Rivers' stat line, 5 passing yards and 1 passing TD, and to think that that's what they got against this team that's struggling to put points on the board and struggling to stop anybody from getting into the red zone. It was good to see that the Chargers' rushing game actually thrived here, especially Ryan Matthews. He's a better running back than people give him credit for, and it's nice to see that he's gotten into some sort of a rhythm the last couple of games. My concern going forward for teams, especially in fantasy, when you play these Jaguars, never getting one player that breaks out, but having a lot of mediocre plays. But what are you going to do? Chargers defense, this was good for them. 6 sacks, 1 interception, 353 yards allowed. If they could just get their defense moving along, and they can because their rush defense is actually pretty good, this could be a team that might surprise people in the end. And if 3 teams out of the AFC West can advance to the playoffs, the Chargers could be one of them. For the Jaguars, wow, Chad Henne, 318 yards passing in, 0 TDs. That is awful. And even one of his receivers broke 100 yards, and they still couldn't score. Maurice Jones-Drew, 57 all-purpose yards, not going to do it. Guys, come on. Somebody on the Jaguars, coach these guys.
All right, Jets 30, Patriots 27. Well, as the only one that actually picked the Jets in this game, I can strut my stuff a little bit here with this pick, considering I've been wrong just about everything else the rest of the season. How did the Jets win this game? Well, it did help to have Tom Brady not be able to throw a rock in the ocean in the fourth quarter, and not enough people are talking about that. For all of the excellence that Brady has embodied throughout his career, when they needed him in the clutch, he was bad. He was missing people, lots of people. You look at their third downs for the game, 1 of 12. That is not Patriot football. That's not the Patriot way, for whatever you want to make of that. And that is just not going to get it done. Geno Smith leads the Jets on an impressive first drive and then kind of cools off a little bit, going for 233 yards, a touchdown and a pick. But Brady not throwing a touchdown, but did come away with 1 pick for the total. Chris Ivory for the Jets runs for 104 yards, although he did need 34 carries to get there. The Patriots run the ball fairly well, averaging 4.5 yards a carry across 3 running backs, but they just don't seem all that committed to it in what was a close game. If they could somehow add that, especially now with Gronkowski coming back in a big way with 8 catches for 114 yards, you would think things would start to loosen up for a little bit, but Brady just did not look the part. Not a good week to be a Patriot. Steve, Bengals, Lions.
All right, Lions lose at home 27-24 against the Bengals. Now, if you're just a normal passerby, doesn't really follow football, or if you're, you miss the game and you go to just look at the stat lines, you look at Matt Stafford, 28 for 51, 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. You look at Calvin Johnson, 9 catches, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. You're like, man, Detroit, I mean, those are amazing numbers. They must have won the game. Then you look at Andy the Man Dalton, 24 for 34, 372 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then as far as receiving, you have A.J. Green, who put up another monster game, 6 receptions, 155 yards, and a score. I mean, it was a low-scoring shootout as far as shootouts go. But, I mean, the offenses were the absolute stars of the game. I can't really say too much negative about Detroit, except for they just could not get the running game going, which give credit to Cincinnati's defense in that avenue. Reggie Bush was only 20 for 50 yards, which it gave him the 20 carries, which I know Jim has mentioned it, and Keith, you've mentioned it before, and I know I've mentioned it, that if you really if you want to win in this league, your number one back has to touch the ball at least 20 times. And they did that with Detroit, but they just could not get the running game started at all. Cincinnati, my God, they had some issues in the 2 losses that they had, but overall, this team, if I was playing them in the postseason, I would be concerned. They're the type of team that is going to sneak up on you, and they're going to get that victory when the chips are down and everyone's against you. And I think people should not fall asleep on them, especially Andy Dalton. The numbers he's putting up this season, and he's only getting better week after week. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the season if he's in MVP talk. And that's my game plan.
Wow. All right, Jim, Rams, Panthers.
What a dominating win for the Panthers. Where's this team been this season? Suddenly, since their bye week, the Panthers are playing some really good football, especially on defense. in fantasy football. If this unit is even on your waivers, you need to immediately pick him up and for certain play him this week and then consider him going forward. I really loved how it was such a well-balanced attack. You had a passing TD, a rushing TD, and then a defensive TD. It was good to see, and I'm hoping that this coming week Cam Newton really shows his worth against a Buccaneers team that's reeling, but it's a game that they should win. Then you've got the Rams. The ship has sailed on this team, especially with the loss of Sam Bradford tearing his ACL. I mean, he was really their only hope to sort of try to pull together a passing game that started really strong this season. Had some moments a couple weeks ago, but now it's just really faltered, and everybody's struggling. Zach Stacy's the lone star on this team right now, and my concern is that even he gets lost, because if you can't pass on defenses, they're just going to shut down your rushing offense. The Rams defense looks like another year wasted, a lot of talent wasted. But on a positive note, go Panthers.
All right, 49ers 31, Titans 17. I've said before that the Titans are my pick for the surprise of the NFL season. Even when they lose, they play tough. So how do you beat a team that's as physical as Tennessee? Well, you go out and you smash them right in the mouth. The 49ers ran the ball 41 times. Okay, Kaepernick only threw 21 passes. Completed 13 of them for 199 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Didn't need to. This game was 17-0 at the half. And then in the third quarter, a Frank Gore 1-yard TD run made it 24-0. Game over. Defense starts loosening up, and all of a sudden, Tennessee throws on 17 pretty much meaningless points. I'm going to go along with Kasim Osgood fumble return for a touchdown just to ice it. So 31-17. But you look at the numbers, and Tennessee really made San Francisco work for it. The only problem is San Francisco's a pretty damn good team, and they have just more talent at every single position across the board. Not really a surprise here, but it's good to see somebody just try to smack San Francisco in the mouth.
Yeah.
Steve, Houston, Kansas City.
All right. The Kansas City Chiefs at home, 17-16 over the Houston Texans. And the Kansas City Football Chiefs are the only undefeated team remaining in the NFL. And I will say that again. Kansas City Chiefs, only undefeated team at 7-0.
Back on the air. And we're back. Do we have Mr. Taylor back again?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Kansas City. Keep going.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, internet fart. We'll call it that.
As I was saying,
all that Chiefs talk blew the mic. That's what happened. Yeah.
I didn't even start talking about the Chiefs yet. That's
even the forces of the internet can't believe that Andy Reid is 7-0 with this Chiefs team.
Tell me about it. No, as I was saying, Case Keenum came in and played a solid game. I mean, he was 15 for 25, 271 yards, and a score. And that's going against, like I said, Kansas City, in my opinion, has the best defense in the league this year. And they, that's solid numbers for somebody coming in on the road playing against the undefeated Chiefs. But once again, poor Houston, two more monumental injuries for them. Arian Foster out with a hamstring, which it didn't look too bad, but everyone knows those hamstring injuries, especially in a position like running back or wide receiver, they can just kind of hang around and never quite heal. So you got to wonder what he's going to be the rest of the season. And then one of my favorite players, Brian Cushing, just an awful injury. You have guys that go through the whole ACL tear, but he goes not only an ACL tear, but ACL tear and a broken leg. And it was painful to watch. I know it was probably more painful to deal with it like he did, but watching a player like him, and once again, it was one of those low blocks that a lot of people are saying, that's how the game is turning to. Instead of hitting high, they're going to hit low, and the poor guy, it was an awful injury. So you got to wonder with these two major players out. As much as I said Houston was out of it last week, I think this was the final nail in the coffin as far as the rest of their season. Where Kansas City, on the other hand, once again, their defense played well. Their offense played good. You had Alex Smith, 23 for 34, 240 yards and a score. Jamal Charles, 21 carries, 86 yards and a score. Once again, this team is very reminiscent to me of the Baltimore Ravens. Not last year's team, but the team, 2000 when they won with Trent Dilfer? Mm-hmm. It's very similar to that team for me. You have a team with a solid running game, a quarterback that's not going to necessarily win the games for you, but he's not going to lose them, and then a solid defense. So to me, I still think Kansas City is going to be a team to watch going into the postseason.
All right, Jim, Browns, Packers.
First for the bad news, and that is the Browns could very well be the team that we thought they were before Brian Hoyer became the quarterback, struggling mightily against a Packers offense that, regardless of their stars going down to injury, other guys stepped up and played equally as well. For the Browns, it's just one of these things. Everybody wants to blame Brandon Whedon for throwing for 17 for 42, whatever his stat line was. But here's a team that just can't run the ball. If you're going to beat the Green Bay Packers, a high-powered offense like theirs, the way you're going to beat them is by running the ball and keeping their offense off the field and scoring every time you run the ball and drive down the field. And the Browns just can't do that. And if they can't do that, I can't necessarily put all the blame on Brandon Whedon like the management and the coaches of the Browns have. So that's that. In terms of the Packers, here's a team that at this point on, and I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised. I think they started off 1-3 and now they're atop their division. The fact is this is a team that now is warmed up, and even though they've lost a couple of their key guys, they have other guys that are going to step up for them, and they're going to play strong. Their defense is right now off the hook good. I think they've only given up 39 points in 3 games. So, at this point, I expect offensively and defensively for this team to rock. They have a great schedule the rest of the way out, and they're going to win the NFC North, and I think they could very well be one of the top seeds in the NFC.
All right. Steelers 19, Ravens 16. How did the Steelers win this game? Well, they just, like I said in the last recap, they just smacked Baltimore right in the mouth. Defense. And almost like a return to what we are traditionally known Pittsburgh for, running the football. Roethlisberger only threw 23 passes in this game, and they ran the ball 29 total times. Le'Veon Bell, who is becoming my fantasy nemesis because every time I bench him, he seems to put up almost 100 yards. 19 rushes for 93 yards. No scores, but almost a 5 yards per carry average. And then there's Roethlisberger escaping 3 carries for 25 yards. For the Ravens, they got big issues as far as their offensive flow goes. Joe Flacco, 24 of 34. Yeah, that sounds great. Only 215 yards. They could not run the ball against this Pittsburgh defense, and that's the bottom line. Torrey Smith only catches 3 balls. Jacoby Jones, 4 catches. Ray Rice, 4 catches. Marlon Brown, 4 catches. He spread it around enough, but 24 catches among the receiving corps for 215 yards, a 9 yards per reception average. You're going to need more out of that team. If you're not going to run the ball against Pittsburgh, you better be able to throw it, and they could do neither. So this was a good AFC North showdown. Physical, beating each other up. The home team came out on top. Sometimes that's all it takes. Steve, Broncos, Colts.
All right. The Sunday night game, a very fun game to watch, was Colts at home, 39-33 over the Broncos.
Fun for you.
You have 2 very good teams playing one another. The Colts were 4-2. The Broncos, of course, were going in at 6-0. You look at this game, the first thing I have to say is if there are people, I know this was one of the highest rated football games this season as far to watch. And I know there are probably a lot of people who heard of Andrew Luck but never really saw him play. this was a good game for him to show to the world who he was. His numbers were not Peyton Manning numbers. Manning was 29 for 49, 386, 3 scores, and then there was that one pick where ball kind of got tipped in the air. But Andrew Luck, 21 for 38, 228, 3 touchdowns, and just a tough kid, and he played a very tough game. To me, the biggest eye-opener in this game, and it's something that I have been preaching all season, is, I'm not a Denver hater, and I know people think I am by the way I talk about them. I just see a flawed team. I see a team that has a terrible defense, and I always said if somebody could figure out how to, you're never going to stop the offense. You're never going to stop Denver's offense, but you can find a way to slow them down enough, and you have a good enough offense to put up, close to 40 points like Indy did, you can beat Denver. And to me, this game was, if anything I would be worried about if I was Denver, is this showed other teams how to play Denver's offense. If you have good enough secondary, you play the Denver wide receivers just man to man, a little bit of help in the back, and then you just rush Peyton Manning. And today, Peyton Manning wasn't in practice. He did get beat up pretty bad in that game, and it makes you wonder that if Denver going into this game really had not played anyone that was very tough. I mean, if you look at their record so far, they beat Baltimore, who we know is not a very good team. I mean, they're okay this year, but they're not very good. They beat the Giants, who are garbage. They beat Oakland, who's manza. They beat Philly, who we know is not good. Dallas, who's kind of good, bad, whatever. We know their defense is kind of garbage. And then they beat Jacksonville, which is awful. So Indianapolis is really their first major opponent, and they lost to them. So to me, this was a huge eye-opening game, and I hope more and more people are going to give Indy credit, because if you look at them this year, they've beaten San Francisco, they've beaten Denver, and they've beaten Seattle. So I think Indy is a team to watch.
All right, in the final game of the week, the Vikings and the New York Giants. Do you have any words for this?
I do. Well, if you're like any one of the other analysts or like yours truly that thought the Vikings could possibly win this game, there came a point in watching where you thought to yourself, oh my God, or you heard the people around you who picked the Giants say, I told you so, ringing in your ears. This was just an awful performance by the Vikings. I'm not even sure how it was that the Vikings coaches could think that Josh Freeman could lead this team. But, in Josh's defense, I think there's a lot of problems with the Vikings. Their defense, their offensive line, certainly there were plays that they made, but there were a lot of plays that they missed. You're not gonna play with anybody if your quarterback can't throw a single touchdown, and if your rushing game can't get going. And I know the rushing game could survive without a good quarterback, because they did last year with Christian Ponder under center. So this is absolutely inexcusable. For the Giants, Ruben Randall's got to be the best fantasy player and possibly the best player on this team. Whatever you want to take out of this win, you can't be happy with the fact that Eli Manning's stat line was 200 yards and 1 passing TD, when it should have been more like 300 yards and 2 to 3 passing TDs against this Vikings team. I will say this, big shout out to Peyton Hillis. Was so happy to see him, even though the per yardage carries or per yardage catches may not have been that impressive. Here's a guy that has stuck with it. He was a former fantasy stud, a former just great running back, and I thought this was awesome. And me personally, I remember starting off in the biz, and one of the first athletes to contact me by Twitter and actually have a conversation with me was Peyton Hillis, and I'm a big fan of his, so I was very happy for him. But at the end of the day, I don't know how anybody could walk out of this game with good feelings for either of these teams, even though the Giants got a chance on the road against the Eagles.
All right, there you have it, folks, the official 87sportsfans.com Week 7 recap. Hope you all enjoyed it as much as we do. We'll take a quick, we're talking 3-minute break here, just to reset our minds. And when we come back, we'll go over our Week 8 picks. We'll also have the Defending Your Pick. And good news for Steve, you are free and clear. Yeah. We'll be right back. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
If I was a snake and you were a mouse, would you run from me? Should we stay forever apart? Would you make me free? I don't really care if you love me. Hold my heart at last. I don't really care if you need me. I should leave you fast. If I was a snake, I would be so wise. Never let you in. Would my life be terribly nice? Would my poison kill? I don't really care if you love me. Hold my heart at last. I don't really care if you need me. I should leave you fast. I should leave you I don't really care if you love me. Hold my heart at last. I don't really care if you need me. I should leave you fast. I should leave you fast, 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 fast. I should leave you fast.
All right.
Welcome back to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. Keith Grieve, Steve Taylor, and Jim Saranteas from thefantasygreek.com. Follow him on Twitter at thefantasygreek. Last segment of the show. Got about 18 wonderful minutes to go through our Week 8 picks. Like I said before, Steve-O is leading our little competition here. We got a 3-game lead on Jim and an 8-game lead on me. So that I'll just throw that out there to maybe explain some of my picks going forward. Okay, so first, the games we all agree on. We're all picking the Panthers to beat the Bucks at home. The Bucks, they've been losing, but they seem to be clawing in games. Do you think Shiano's fired after this year, or do you think he's coming back?
I think he's coming back.
I think it's a tough call. I think it could go either way. And here's part of the reason. I think the people that are sort of bringing in the personnel for him to use. I mean, some of these moves, somebody's blessing him. I mean, this isn't just him, a rogue, wild, crazy guy. There's management that's behind what he's doing, and that's why I hesitate. But if they lose people like Vincent Jackson, I think he's gone.
All right. We're all picking the Chiefs to beat the Browns. We're all picking the Eagles to beat the Giants. That's the Eagles have not won a home game yet. We're all picking them to beat the Giants.
That's a tough call, I think, by the way.
Yeah, it's a division game. It's a rivalry game. Kind of throw the records out the window, but You got to figure the Eagles got to win a home game sometime.
Yeah, and after the performance, and you can't expect LaShawn McCoy to put up another performance like he did last week. You know, I think this week he's gonna have another really big game.
Yeah, we're all picking the 49ers to beat Jacksonville. Not even I can make an argument to pick the Jaguars on that one. We're all picking the Patriots to beat the Dolphins. That I didn't feel comfortable about that game just because Brady looked so out of sorts last week. But
you know, there was a game though that they ran the ball a bunch. I mean, he connected with Gronkowski. I think the thing that disturbs me about Brady is the distribution of passes amongst his wide receivers not named Rob Gronkowski.
Right.
That's where there's sort of some discomfort, which makes no sense to me because there are games where he's hitting Kenbrell Tompkins for close to 200 yards and then 2 TDs, and then the following week 20 yards.
Yeah.
Games where he's hitting Julian Edelman for 70 to 100 and a TD, the following week 30 to 40 yards. And, you know, he can't be sitting there waiting for Danny Amendola because, quite frankly, Amendola has yet to prove that he could, you know, physically play through an entire season. And I hate using the expression injury prone because it suggests that he's easily injured. But, like, I mean, last week the concussion to me is not really a point of him being easily injured. Just somebody hit him in the head and he got a concussion. That happens to the best of football players.
Right.
You know, so I think this had a lot to do with how they handled the Jets, which went down your philosophy, Keith. They ran against one of the top 5 rushing defenses in the league and succeeded.
Right, but you see, you said they ran the ball a bunch. They ran the ball 20 times. Brady threw it 46 times in a close game. You know what I mean? So it's not like they were throwing to come back. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, they didn't run it a bunch, but they ran at them and they succeeded.
Yeah, I agree that they should have committed a little bit more. Too much. I think the mindset in New England is to put it on Tom's shoulders.
Yeah.
We'll just figure it out. It's worked in the past, theoretically, but
yeah.
We're all picking the Saints over the Bills at home. We're all picking the Broncos.
Can I say something about that game?
Oh, absolutely.
I'd like to say Marcus Colston, I think, is going to have a breakout.
Who's left in Buffalo secondary?
Well, that's not the point. The point is prior to their bye week, Colston has been awful. I mean, if you project his numbers out, he's due to come in at right around 900 yards and 3 receiving TDs, which is I mean, he's a typical 1,000 to 1,200, 7 to 8 TD receiver his entire career up until this season. One of the things I've pointed out either in articles or even in little spots that I've done for other shows is that, you know, the bye week is very important to teams because it really does a couple things. Or actually 3 things. The first is, 1, people get healthy. The second thing, it allows coaches to figure out what the problem is. Because during a normal week, I mean, you know, you come back in on Mondays, you're looking over film, you're looking over things on Tuesday, putting together your game plan together, and Wednesday you start installing it. There's just not enough time to make very big adjustments. And so I think the Saints get all that. The matchup is right for Colston, and even better than that, I hate to say it, I'm not very confident about Jimmy Graham necessarily playing this weekend. If he does, it's possible he'll be limited, and I think it's equally possible right now that he doesn't play.
And Colston for the year averaging 4 catches a game for 54 yards a game.
Oof.
Awful.
That's terrible.
The Denver Broncos are our pick to beat the Redskins. We're all picking the Atlanta Falcons to beat the Arizona Cardinals. I almost picked them again.
I'm stunned that we're all agreeing on that, by the way.
I almost picked the Cardinals again, and I looked at the numbers, and Atlanta still manages to score more points.
I just believe in Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big Ryan fan, but Arizona, they let me down.
His numbers are, I mean, he's averaging 300 yards and 2 TDs per game.
Yeah. I mean, he's 1,900 yards, 13 touchdowns, and only 3 picks. I mean, that's an outstanding stat line.
Yeah.
I mean, he's hitting 70% of his passes right now.
And he's doing it with whoever they send out on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's got the numbers. I just don't like him. I'm about this close to sending a fish wrapped in newspaper to Bruce Arians' door with the Cardinals.
You know, I thought about his situation, and you know, I never thought he would turn the team around within 1 year.
Right.
I thought they made great strides with some of the moves they made with the offensive line, and it started to look like it was working up until the injuries hit. And, the Rashard Mendenhall thing, it sounded like the right thing to do. Maybe he's just not a good fit anymore for at least this kind of an offense.
Well, you got to give him a guy a shot in his situation. He's only 26 years old. You know what I mean? Spent the last couple of years injured in Pittsburgh. You know?
I agree.
The tread should be tired, or the tread should be fresh. Yeah. He's averaging 40 yards a game for them on 13 attempts.
Yeah, there's just something missing that, I think another year it will help. Make personnel changes will help. I think they'll get their quarterback of the future, hopefully.
Yeah.
St. Paul. Even though I like him, I think he's doing an okay job, just not a great job.
Yeah.
Too many picks. 13 picks for Carson Palmer.
Oof.
He's under tremendous pressure.
Yeah, he's been sacked 20 times.
Yep.
In 7 games.
They led the league. By the way, there's a couple teams I should just sit down and make a list of this. But there are teams giving up more sacks than what the Cardinals have given up. And last year, the Cardinals led the league with 58.
Oh, wow.
I think there's going to be several teams that blow that out of the water this year.
Wow. At least it's not the Bears for once. Green Bay, we all picked Green Bay to beat the Vikings, and we're all picking Seattle to beat St. Louis on Monday night. What another stinker on Monday Night Football.
I tell you, to me, that was one of the worst moves, moving Monday Night Football to ESPN, because ever since that happened, the viewership is down, and they have just gotten the garbage games where NBC on Sunday night has just the best lineup, and their viewership is dynamite. You can't put a big game like Monday Night Football on paid cable and expect people to watch it. Like, you have someone like me, I don't pay for cable. Like, I'm not going to drop all that money for cable, so I haven't seen a Monday Night Football game since it moved to ESPN. And I think that's a huge folly on their part.
It's just they're trying to get all these teams exposures, but not all these teams are worthy of it. You don't want to watch Minnesota Giants this year, you know what I mean, on Monday Night Football. But again, when you're scheduling these games, you don't know it. I know that I don't want to watch St. Louis on Monday Night Football game in the middle of in the beginning of the year, even if Sam Bradford was going to play this game. Yeah. There's nothing really that exciting about the St. Louis Rams. There was reasons teams went through years where they didn't have games on Monday Night Football because they stunk. But anyway, okay, so the games that there is disagreement about, I have 2 of them, and Jim has 1. And Steve, like I said, you are free and clear for this week. You can just sit back and be the peanut gallery.
Yeah.
Dallas at Detroit. I am picking Dallas. And so now one might say, what on earth? You just got done recapping the Cowboys' ugly win, saying that they should feel dirty about winning in Philadelphia the way that they did. And I don't like Detroit. I don't like Detroit more than I like Dallas. I know that Reggie Bush has offered, he's performed pretty damn well for the Lions. But when I think of the Lions, and I still see a one-dimensional team. And you look at, they're currently ranked 21st in rushing yards. Their defense is ranked 23rd in rushing yards allowed. The Cowboys reportedly should get DeMarco Murray back this week. I think he had a lot to do with their offense being out of sync. Not being there had a lot to do with the offense being out of sync. I know this game is on the road, but I still think that there's too many offensive weapons on Dallas, and they have a defense good enough to contain Detroit, and I'm picking Dallas.
See, and that that's the one thing I disagree with you on, because to me, I had a hard time with this game because it was. You look at the Cowboys and they're kind of inconsistent, but their offense, you got to give Romo a lot of credit. He is having a fantastic year so far. But Detroit, the Cowboys defense, they are the defense that gave up 51 points to Denver. And now I know everyone's going to say, well, it's Denver. Well, you know what? The Lions have a guy named Matt Stafford, and they have another guy named Calvin Johnson. And those two right there I think are going to put up huge numbers against Dallas. I wouldn't be surprised if Stafford's in the 400-yard range with multiple touchdowns. So to me, I think it's going to be another shootout. I think Dallas is going to put up a lot of points. You know, the Lions' the rush defense is not stellar, but they do put pressure on the quarterback, and everyone knows as soon as Tony Romo starts, leaving the pocket and scrambling is when he likes to throw his interceptions. So to me, I think Detroit has enough at home. If this was being played at Dallas, I probably would have picked differently. But since it's being played at Detroit, I think they have enough at home to take the Cowboys out and put them at 500.
All right. Jim, you going to pile on?
No, go ahead.
He's not the best color man in the industry for nothing, ladies and gentlemen.
That's
What game are we talking about?
Yeah. Dallas, Detroit.
Look, I like the Lions in this one. The primary reason is Matt Stafford is just playing off the hook. And one of the things that I noticed in the trends of the stats for the Cowboys defense is when they play good passing offenses, they struggle mightily and they don't play well. And, I think Matt Stafford is very much like Matt Ryan. I mean, he proved himself to me when they won without Calvin Johnson on the field and Matt Stafford threw 4 TDs. So I just, while I like the Cowboys defense, I certainly think Tony Romo is primed for a good game. I absolutely love Des Bryant in this matchup, as well as whatever running back is going to be the starter for the Cowboys. The reality is I think the Lions have what it takes in this particular instance to pull out the win. And what I envision seeing is a high-scoring game.
Oh, it's going to be a shootout. The Lions are 28th in passing yards allowed. The Cowboys, they're 30th. So, yeah, it's who's going to contain who enough. Like I said, I don't think the Cowboys are going to run away with it, but I think they're going to win. All right, the other game that I'm on the outside looking in on is the Jets at Cincinnati, and I am going to pick the New York Jets to win on the road in Cincinnati. Oh, God. And I do it with a heavy heart. Again, part of this pick is strictly because I'm trying to pick up ground on Steve.
That's a cop-out. Come on.
No, I think the Jets could win it. If I had a lead, if I was winning in this game, I would be picking the Bengals just because they're the home team. But the Jets hosted New England. Again, I know it was a home game, but they are second in the league in rushing yards allowed, which is going to force Andy Dalton to try to be the second coming of Boomer Esiason, and they're 10th defensively in passing yards allowed. So I think defensively it plays into their hands. Now, the Bengals are no slouch on defense themselves. Their front seven is arguably as good as anybody in the league, and they are ranked 8th in rushing yards allowed themselves. However, they get a little bit more porous in the air. And so now you say, well, what makes you think that Geno Smith can pass better than Andy Dalton? And I just have this magic little feeling in my gut that Geno is going to be the Geno that we saw on the opening drive of the New England Patriots game more than we saw in the middle of the game. And again, trying to pick up ground.
Yeah. To me, I can understand why you did it. Like you said, you're trying to pick up ground.
Come on, guys.
To me, Cincinnati, this is a big game for them because right now at 5-2, they have a nice grip on the AFC North. But like I said, Pittsburgh has won 2 games in a row, and they're going to Oakland, which they could, we'll talk about this after this, but they could win that game, and if they do, they're 3-4. Baltimore's 3-4 right now. Cleveland's even 3-4, even though Cleveland I think is starting to head backwards instead of forward. But Cincinnati, if they win this game, that pretty much puts a lock. To them, if they can keep the ball rolling and continue to play consistent, this game could kind of push them over the edge and give them enough of a buffer that the AFC North is without a doubt theirs to lose. So to me, I don't see them dropping. Maybe if it was on the road, it would be a different story. But for them to drop a home game, yeah, I don't see that happening.
You look at at who they've beaten. Okay, they beat the Steelers, which is nothing to write home about these days. They beat the Packers. Kudos to them. They beat the Patriots,
Who are a 5-2 team?
They're not your father's Patriots, though.
No.
And they had to go to overtime to beat the Bills. All right, and then they beat the Lions this past week. So I'm not sold that they're going to be able to put back-to-back-to-back performances together. So I'm picking the Jets on the road. I think the Jets are our defensive team. I think Rex Ryan is as phenomenal a defensive coach as there is. It's the other side of the ball that he struggles with, and I think the defense wins this one on the road. So then the last and final game, Mr. Saranteas, you are picking the Raiders at home to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing the Steelers win this one. I mean, I know you guys said you saw the Steelers play and saw something in their game, and yet, it just doesn't do anything for me. In a situation where the Raiders defensively are actually a much better team than many made them out to be. For example, and part of the thing that makes me feel more confident about saying this are two things. One, going into the bye week, the Raiders had one of the toughest games they possibly could have had against the number one defense in the league, the Chiefs. And even though the Chiefs don't boast one of the greatest offenses passing-wise, the Raiders sacked Alex Smith 3 times, gave up 24 points, which is a reasonable amount of points. I mean, there's nothing spectacular about that, but it's still 24. I mean, if their defense was that bad, they would have just blown up, and they didn't. But they limited the Chiefs to 216 yards of total offense. And I cannot imagine a Steelers team that could put up any reasonable amount of points if they can't put up more than 300 yards of offense. At best, Ben Roethlisberger is a 200-yard, 1 TD quarterback this weekend. If anybody's going to win this game for him, it's going to be Le'Veon Bell. But I like Terrell Pryor only insofar as he's a 200-yard, 1 TD guy. And I like him more, and especially Darren McFadden, because the Steelers are giving up roughly 130 all-purpose yards rushing and 1 TD to the running back, and I see Terrell Pryor adding to that. So, the Steelers can throw whatever they want at Terrell Pryor. They've thrown whatever they've got left at a lot of different quarterbacks, and it's not doing them well. I mean, they couldn't beat Christian Ponder. So I just don't see them going to the black hole and pulling this out. It just, on paper, it just doesn't gel for me.
Well, last week, Terrell Pryor was a 200-yard, 1 touchdown guy, but he was also a 3 interception guy. And
how many interceptions do the Steelers have?
Hold on, I'll find that out for you. But the other stat I wanted to throw.
I got to be honest. I think you will be stunned, and I think you'll see they're at the bottom of the league.
Pryor was sacked 9 times last week.
How many times?
9 times.
And I don't see the Steelers doing that either. Because they're just not a team that's producing right now. I mean, they have had so many opportunities, and I hate beating them down, but they have in so many different ways disappointed, not just me, but their fans, with the kind of play that they've put out on the field, both on offense and on defense. I mean, it's unexplainable. They've got one of the the best defensive coordinator in the league, arguably, who's a Hall of Famer, even though he's working with these older guys. I mean, how is it that they can't do what they used to do? It's just, in my mind, not plausible.
This year.
2 picks.
2 picks.
2 picks.
Okay.
And 8 sacks.
3 fumbles.
I'm telling you, the way that the Raiders, if they're smart, they're sitting there going, the way we're going to beat this team is to run the ball, and to run the ball, and to run the ball, and to throw periodically, and to roll out, and to do this, and to do that. And let Troy Polamalu do all the stints and everything that he wants, but it doesn't always work, and he's shown that this season.
But here's where stats can be a little bit misleading. Okay, so the rushing yards allowed by the Steelers, starting in week 1, 112, 127, 107, 145. Then they had their bye week, and they played the Jets, and they played the Ravens, and they've given up 83 and 82. rushing yards. Those two teams respectively. They've made an adjustment defensively. It just remains to be seen whether it takes against the Oakland Raiders.
I got to be honest. I mean, I think even putting it up against the Ravens, who I'm disappointed. That's another team I'm disappointed in. They haven't put in a rushing offense almost the entire. Ray Rice has had one good game this whole season. Mm-hmm. I mean, I cannot in my mind even say that it's a good comparison. So I just think that everything sets up right this week for the Raiders to win this game, and that the Steelers are just not a good call. And I'm going to try and find, if I can, somewhere on the internet here, how many sacks they've had, because I honestly think that this is a Steelers defense. And Keith, you've mentioned it. They're a show. I don't think that they're a show. I mean, they're awful.
They've got 8 sacks for the year, 5 by Lamar Woodley. But they are also the.
Oh my God!
They are also
It's awful.
The 4th ranked passing defense as far as yards allowed, 1st in passing TDs allowed. So they got the 8 sacks, the 2 picks. They got 23 passes defended, and 10.
But here's the rub: they're giving up 22 points a game. So their red zone defense it's not the worst, but it's not the greatest either.
Right.
You know, I mean, like somebody else I love for the Raiders this week is Sebastian Janikowski. I think this is going to be a great week for him. I mean, this is a guy who's lined up to have 3 to 4 field goals in this game. You know, so
I think the arrow's pointing up on the Steelers defense.
See, I'm gonna make a proclamation here. This is one of my famous. I'm probably gonna get ridiculed for it, but I think if Pittsburgh wins this game, looking at the remaining schedule, if they win this game, they have a legitimate shot at making the postseason after starting 0-4.
Wow.
Because their upcoming schedule is filled with good teams but not great teams. I would say that probably the toughest game as far as the team that I think will be looking the best is December 22nd, when they have to go to Green Bay, which is going to be a really tough game. But I mean, if you look at the rest of they have to go to New England, which isn't as daunting a task as it used to be. Then home against Buffalo, home against Detroit, at Cleveland, at Baltimore on Thanksgiving night, home against Miami, home against Cincinnati, at Green Bay, home against Cleveland. I mean, you look at that schedule. Yeah, the teams are all chippy. They're on that list, but there's no like dominant team that if the Steelers get on a roll, they won't be able to pull out. You know, maybe a 9-7 season. So it is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see. I think a lot of it rides on how they play this week to see if the fixes they've put in are legitimate or if it was only a 2-game thing.
Here's an interesting stat: scoring percentage of drives ending in an offensive score for the year. The Steelers are 13th. The Raiders are 29th. They have scored less, and the scary thing is right above them is Houston.
Oh, really?
At 28th. And then the Browns. The Browns have actually scored slightly more often than the Houston Texans. Dear God.
Well, the Texans are a mess. We all know that.
You know, there's a flip side to all this, and I'm trying to find it if I can.
Just keep arguing till you're right. You're one of those, aren't you?
No. But
I'm just kidding.
No, but you're one of those, goddammit. We know that.
Yes, I am. Proud.
No, I mean, look, there's a flip side to all this, and it, you know, well, no, you know what? I'm not going to argue until I'm good.
Okay. And with that, we will bring another fantastic episode to a close. Every Wednesday night here, folks, 10 Eastern Daylight Time at 87sportsfans.com. You can also find us on Spreaker, iTunes, for Steve Taylor and Jim Saranteas at The Fantasy Greek on Twitter and thefantasygreek.com. I am Keith Grieve.
And I am Steve Taylor. The Lockbox, Amazon.com. Buy it.
That's right. Lockbox, Amazon.com. Get it now. What are you waiting for?
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.